Hi everyone, welcome in the Module 6, Session 4. My name is Ioana Zagrean and I'm from LUMSA University. I will present to you this work about bias and prejudice in community music. So our agenda will take in consideration definition, distinction and theory about bias and prejudice. In the second point, we will explore the concept of implicit prejudice, the subtle form of prejudice, how to recognize it in oneself and others, and the impact on interaction with diverse communities and practical implication in music education. Let's start with the definition of bias. Bias is a systematic error in judgment and decision making common to all human beings, which can be due to cognitive limitations, motivational factors, and or adaptation to natural environments. Allport defined prejudice already in the late 54 as an antipathy-based open a faulty generalization. It may be felt or expressed. It may be directed toward the group as a whole or toward an individual because he's a member of that group. There is a distinction between categorization, stereotypes, bias, and prejudice. Let's see how do we arrive from categorization to prejudice. Already in 54, again, Allport argued that social categorization is a necessary precursor to prejudice. Indeed, categorization is a natural cognitive process and not a bizarre one. It is so because the world is simply too complex a place for us to be able to survive without any means of simplifying and offering it first. So what we do is from categorization we arrive to stereotyping, that it's a consequence of the categorization process. A stereotype corresponds to a belief or set of beliefs according to which one group of individuals attributes certain characteristics to another group of people. And they are not always negative. But when viewed as generalization, they may prove to be approximative. So stereotypes prove to be as a mental scheme, so valid mental strategies or a shortcuts. A bias can be understood as an overreaching concept encompassing stereotypes and prejudice, as it involves the association of traits, positive or negative, with a specific group of people. Racial bias, for instance, encompasses both prejudice, which involves negative feelings toward racial minorities, and stereotyping, which involves beliefs about racial minorities, operating at implicit and explicit level. Indeed, we arrive to put in as a behavior prejudice that it's often stems from stereotypes, and it's a more specific form of bias that targets individual or group based on characteristics such cultural differences, ethnicities, and gender, religion, or social class. It can be expressed in thoughts, feelings, or action. There is a very big distinction between ethnic prejudice and racial prejudice. The two terms often in the literature of this issue are interchangeable, and however they have their own specificity. Indeed, ethnic prejudice refers to all the history, culture, values, religion, and language of specific population, but racial prejudice refers to skin pigmentation or physical conformation. So this is the distinction between the prejudice, ethnic one and racial one. There is two authors that in 95 Pettigrew and Mertens made this distinction between blatant prejudice and subtle prejudice. Let's see how they are the main characteristic of this form of prejudice. The blatant prejudice, that is the explicit form of prejudice, is the traditional form of prejudice. It's characterized by open rejection, beliefs of genetic inferiority, highly discrimination behavior, of course, and the subtle prejudice, that is the implicit form of prejudice. It's a covert form of prejudice. It is characterized by defense of traditional values, exaggeration of cultural differences, and denial of positive emotions. There are some theories about bias and prejudice. One of these is the social identity theory and was proposed by Henry Tajfel and Turner. Social identity theory posits that people categorize themselves and others into social groups based on shared characteristics. Bias and prejudice can arise when individuals identify strongly with their group and perceive other groups as threat or competitors. Here you can find a very interesting article that you can simply read and find how can music reduce anti-dark skin prejudice, and it's a test of a cross-cultural musical education program. There is another way that prejudice can be really and somehow reduced. This is through the upward contact hypothesis. It is said that contact reduces prejudice, but the condition that four values are met: equal status, common goal, intergroup cooperation, support from authorities, law or custom. Lately, Pettigrew in 1998 added another point, that it's friendship potential. This means that meeting the first three conditions and take time. The longer contact, the stronger effect. So intergroup friendship has become one of the most important empirical indicator of contact, because if there is no friendship potential, there is no contact. In this sense, you can find another article that you can choose to read and to explore more about this, that it's Harmonious Contact, stories about intergroup musical collaboration that improve intergroup attitudes. And you will see how prejudice in this case also it's reduced with harmonious contact. Exploring the concept of implicit prejudice, the subtle form that we saw on the distinction of Pettigrew and Mertens, and we want to know how to recognize it in oneself and in others. It's not easy to recognize the prejudice, even if it's subtle, that it's unconscious, or in his explicit form, because maybe we want to deny this. But the implicit prejudice refers to the unconscious attitudes, beliefs, or stereotypes that individuals hold about certain group of people, which can influence their thoughts, feelings, and behavior without their conscious awareness. These prejudices are often deeply ingrained and can manifest in subtle ways, even among individuals who consciously reject prejudice. Research on implicit prejudice provides good evidence that most persons have deeply held negative association with minority groups that can lead to subtle discrimination without conscious awareness. We will see some of the causes that bring us to do this phenomenon. In 2021, some authors pointed a correlation between implicit association test, that it's the test that can be used to see if we have this kind of prejudice. And it seems that the score are regional levels of discrimination, suggesting that implicit bias are more robust and predictive of behavior than expected. This underscores the significance of implicit bias in influencing actions and decisions, including those with the context of music community. In the context, indeed, of music education, another author discussed how first-hand experience lead pre-service music teacher to recognize their own implicit bias and understand the impact of culturality responsive teaching in the music classroom. This highlights the potential and the foster awareness of implicit bias and promote cultural responsibility of music education. So it's extremely important to understand if we have or not this kind of prejudice, and to understand that if we find out that we have it, is to work on and to have the awareness of this kind of prejudice that can in somehow work behind our behavior, and we don't figure out about this behavior that we have. Indeed, here is a kind of form is how implicit association works, and you can try it by yourself. I would say that the impact on interaction within diverse communities, it's extremely important. So biases and prejudice can lead to discrimination, exclusion, and unequal treatment within diverse communities, including those with special education needs. So in music education, biases may manifest as favoritism towards certain genders or style, or differential treatment based on background, impacting the overall learning experience. But listening music from a foreign culture decreases implicit racial prejudice in participants with higher dispositional empathy. So another point that can be worked is to work on our empathy to have less prejudice. This study aligns with the exploration of implicit bias in the context of music and the potential impact on attitudes and perception. In other ways, we recently, I think in 2021, we worked on a paper that is called More Kindness, Less Prejudice with adolescents, where we saw that having a real kindness can reduce the adolescent prejudice. I added to you here another article that you can read, is the concept of cultural humility as it relates to instructional practices in the general music classroom, and to see how prejudice can be reduced, and the fear of diversity, because it's what it happens. We have a fear of diversity, but when these aspects are less and we enter in contact with other people, even implicit prejudice can be really reduced. Music has the capacity to transcend indeed bias and prejudice, promoting positive interaction and relationship within diverse music communities. Furthermore, other two scholarship explore the potential of music in reducing cultural prejudice, particularly in childhood, adolescence, and emerging adulthood. Their review reflects on circumstances where music listening and music making contribute to the reduction of cultural prejudice, indicating the transformative power of music within communities. As I said, I would like to renew the difference between racial and ethnic prejudice. We refer here at the ethnic prejudice because we are referring to the culture. Both can be in the same situation, but I would say that here we talk more about the ethnic prejudice. Here is the reference, and I wish you a very good reading of the article that I suggest. Thank you very much for listening.